Okay, we're going to talk about drag and drop editing in segment mode. This is lesson 4. So I have a timeline set, and we're going to talk about a few things that you can use to help make editing just a little bit simpler. And the first thing we're going to talk about is the Smart tool. A lot of you guys keep this on, which is great, but I want to make sure you kind of understand what all of these buttons are and why they call it the Smart tool for when you're editing. So as we start from top and go down, we have the segment mode, okay? We have the segment mode for the extract, so this is the overwrite, and this is the extract. We have the overwrite trim, and then we have the ripple trim, okay? And finally, the last one is the transition manipulation button, which allows you to manipulate some of your transitions. We'll talk about each one of these separately. So when you have all of these highlighted, okay, you can actually go between whichever one, depending on where you are in the timeline. That's why they call it the Smart tool. So for example, if you're on the upper half, say I'm going to play with the sun panning clip right here. If you're on the upper half of the clip, you'll be in the overwrite segment mode. If you go to the lower half, it turns into the splicing segment mode, or the extract segment mode. Okay, so it kind of uses the equator of the clip to figure out which mode that it is that you would like to use. Same thing goes when you're going to do a trim. So if I go over here to the cut, okay, you'll see on the bottom part I'm in the ripple trim. Up on top, it turns into the overwrite trim. Okay, and it's the same thing if I go top and bottom over here. Okay, so red is always stop, and yellow is always caution. Okay, so when you do the overwrite trim, the tools affect the segments or the tracks that you're going to manipulate. Okay, like a four-way traffic stop, all the other elements in the timeline stay locked in place while you move, trim, or edit when you click. All right, so the stop button, okay, so if you figure it as a stop, if I move this, everything else just stays the same. Doesn't matter where I move it to, nothing else is going to move. So I can move this down here, and here's my sun panning clip down here. Well, now there's a hole here. So the red, or stop, means all the other clips are stopped. If I use the extract or splice, okay, as I move it around, you can see the other clips kind of moving with it. All right, they're in motion as well. So I'm not leaving a hole, I'm just kind of moving where I want the sun panning to go. Okay, so two really powerful tools in the Smart tool. Okay, the segment modes for lift and extract. The next thing I want to talk about is the overwrite trim. So trimming, okay, I'm going to stay on the top half. When you overwrite trim, it means you're going to erase footage. So trimming means I can either extend the sun panning to the right and get rid of sand 1, some of the sand 1 frames, or I can extend sand 1 to the left and get rid of some of the sun panning frames. So for example, if I click on this, you can see how it kind of brackets, and as I move to the left, it's showing me how much room I have to extend or shorten my sand 1 video. So here I'm extending my sand 1. If I go to the right, I'm actually shortening it and extending the sun panning. All right, so let's bring sand 1 back just a little bit. I'm going to come up here and click out of my trim mode. So now I have extended sand 1. Now you'll notice as I move in the timeline, I can't really click and move my indicator bar. So when you're in the Smart tool, you have to make sure that you move your indicator bar either in your source record monitor or move it up here in the time code section. Okay, you can also do it down here as well, but you won't be able to move it in here when you're in the Smart tool. So let's click on the ripple trim. All right, so now I'm going to go back into my timeline, and we're going to do the ripple trim. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, when you have a ripple trim, what it does is everything ripples. So you can see the entire timeline moving as I shorten this sun panning clip. Okay, so let's do that again. So see how all of the clips to the right are moving as I trim this clip. Okay, that is called a ripple trim. So all the clips are rippling. Okay, as I trim, it's rippling throughout the entire timeline. So make sure you understand the difference between the two trims. Notice how I can trim on the left, or I can trim on the right, or I can trim both clips at the same time. Okay, it all depends on what it is that you're trying to do. But it's important when you're trimming that you pay attention to your sync. So if you notice here, as I was trimming, I am now out of sync by 44 frames. So you always want to make sure, going back to lesson 3, that when you are trimming, it's a good idea to keep your sync locks on. Now when I trim, everything will stay in sync. Okay. So that is the Smart tool. Finally, the transition manipulation button. Okay. If you look, when that is highlighted and turned on, I'm going to click out of trim mode here. When that's highlighted and turned on, you'll see how all my transitions now have a little diagonal with some squares on the end of it. What that allows me to do is I can now make my transitions longer right in the timeline. So right here, you can see how I am making my dissolve a little bit longer. Okay, and maybe my fade to black, I'm going to make that a little bit longer as well. So you can actually adjust the transitions right in the timeline with the transition manipulation tool. Okay, so again, overwrite segment mode, extract segment mode, overwrite trim, ripple trim, and then the transition manipulation tool. Okay, and you can click between turning them on and off right here. All right, so this right here allows you to toggle between having them off or having them on, depending on when you want to use them. So that's a nice little feature as well. A couple other things that I want to show you guys is adding clips by dragging and dropping. Now I know we've always learned to use the overwrite button, but you can also drag and drop clips as you would if you would like to do that as well. It depends on what it is, what type of editing style you want to use. Okay, so right here I have an in and out point set over these guys running. Okay, what I want to do is I want to insert this clip of them running with the sun in the background. Okay, across the horizon. So I have my 3-point edit set, so I can easily just overwrite that in and insert and change this video to this one, or I can drag and drop it. So watch, when I click on this, I'm just going to drag it, and I'm going to put it right down here where I would like it. And if you look up here on the source record monitors, you can actually see the middle part where the sun and the shadow of the runners are. That's the clip I'm inserting. But the clip on the left, okay, is where I'm going to start and stop my edit. So when I insert that in, I now have inserted a clip right into my timeline. Okay? Another thing you can do is make sure your sync locks are off for this. I know we've always learned to create new video tracks by right-clicking on the timeline, hitting New and Video Track, or going up to Timeline, New and Video Track. But did you know that you can actually create new video tracks by clicking and dragging footage right to the top of your sequence? Okay, so right there I've created a brand new video track by just clicking and dragging a clip right on top of my video track 1. Okay, so another way to create a video track. The last thing I want to show you is how to adjust some audio without using the audio mix tool. So we've always used the audio mixer, okay, and adjusted the pots accordingly. But I'm going to go into my audio tool right here, make sure all of my tracks are on. Right here, I'm going to click on that little pull-down menu and click on clip gain. Okay, so I'm going to click on the clip gain, and as you notice, as I turn that on, I get a little slider right here. This allows me to go from clip to clip to clip and adjust certain levels, okay, based on that clip without having to use the audio mixer. The audio mixer gives you a more precise edit or a more precise audio mix, but this allows you to do a real quick adjustment if needed. Okay, so you can go clip by clip to adjust the levels as needed. All right, so that is under the little pull down menu and clip gain. Okay, so make sure you understand the difference between the solo and the mute button. So when I turn the solo button on, it turns green, and only this track will play audio, and it is going to mute the rest of the track. So you can see the M for mute is turned on here in the light brown, and solo is turned on in green. So that means I'm going to only play the audio. No music. If I turn on the mute button here, and solo only this track and this track, I'm only going to play my music. So it's a great way to kind of isolate tracks quickly and adjust levels quickly as well with your clip gain and little volume VU meter here. Okay. Finally, digital audio scrubbing. Turn on your caps lock and you're able to scrub throughout your timeline. It's a great feature. I suggest leaving it on at all times. Okay, that will help you really get close and tight with some of your audios, that combined with your waveform monitor being on, and really gives you a chance to do some great fine-tuned audio editing. Okay, so shift or caps lock on allows you to audio scrub. Okay, if I just hold the shift key down, I can do a quick audio scrub. So this is, I'm holding just the shift key down. If I take the shift key off, it will not scrub anymore. But keep the caps lock on and audio scrub away. Okay, so that is exercise 4. We'll see you all in exercise 5. Leon out.